Hi everyone and welcome back to my channel. My name is Mikal and I'm an Eritrean American film photographer and the creator of the HABESHA Project. If you're new here, I produced and hosted my solo debut exhibit focused on the word HABESHA back in August in New York City, and now I am breaking down 14 audio interviews that accompany this project, 2 episodes per week for the next 7 weeks. The word Habesha is a community-oriented term not unlike Arab, Latinx, and Desi, but its meaning varies across individuals and communities. So I interviewed over 20 Eritreans and Ethiopians about what this word means to them and who this word identifies. These conversations are rich, they're layered, and they show how a single word can contain so much history, tension, and love. Before we dive in, I want to say thank you all for the warm reception to this project series. I have over 700 views on the first episode posted a week ago, and so much encouragement from the comment section. It's clear that these conversations are resonating, that they matter, and I am so happy to have you here. If you want to listen to the full interviews, you can check out the playlist on my profile, and both of the interviews that I discuss on this video today will also be linked in the description below. You can also subscribe to my Substack, which will also be linked below. Now let's get into it. Our third participant is 43 years old and was born and raised in Eritrea until the age of 32. He lived in Ohio and at the time of this interview lived in Washington, D.C. His relationship to the word Habesha is completely shaped by displacement. He didn't hear this word used as a self-descriptor until leaving the country. It's only when asked by Ethiopians, "Are you Habesha?" that he started thinking about if he actually identifies with this word. Now he clarifies that he uses this word, but he often responds, "Yes, but I do not speak Amharic." What's interesting is that this word is often used as a self-descriptor in the diaspora. He notes that back home in Eritrea, yes, this word is used as a descriptor, but not a self-descriptor. You'll reference Habesha clothing, Habesha food, but never Habesha people. Despite now using the word as a self-descriptor, this participant notes that this word is fundamentally exclusive. He talks about his upbringing in his hometown of Barantu, which is more diverse than Asmara, the capital. He talks about how he had a friend who was both Kunama, an ethnic minority, as well as Muslim. And out of curiosity one day, he asks them, "Do you like wearing tilfi, which is a traditional Habesha kamis or dress?" They said that they don't typically wear tilfi because often these dresses have a huge meskel or cross on them. This moment stuck with him because it showed him how this word is not inclusive of all Eritreans he grew up with and exchanged traditions and customs with. He makes it clear that his awareness stems from growing up in Barantu, which is more ethnically and religiously diverse than Asmara. I also love this because it resonates with episode 14, in which I actually interviewed a Kunama Eritrean who also considers Barantu home. This participant left Eritrea in January 2012 and does not feel safe going back. He had only left the country once before for a conference and notes that this was an immense privilege. When he finally left the country for good, he was 28 years old. He was granted permission to go to South Africa for his studies and went on to go to the United States. He talks about privilege in very stark terms. He notes that 10,000 students annually go for matriculation, otherwise known as the formal process of becoming a candidate for a university degree, but only 20% of Eritreans go on to be entered into university. The rest go on into indefinite mandatory military conscription. The displacement of leaving your country and knowing that you can't return while many of your peers are stuck in the system shapes everything, including how you see your identity. Participant 3 goes on to note something that I haven't heard from other participants in this project. This in-between space that Eritreans and Ethiopians often hold as not white but not black, he believes that it comes from the sense of being the first Christians in Africa. that this somehow sets us apart racially due to our religious and cultural distinction. There's also a political dimension to this. Eritrea has limited Pan-African exposure compared to Ethiopia, where we see the African Union headquartered in Addis Ababa. In this way, we can see a distinction in positionality of these two African nations that hold very close cultural ties. Participant 3 admits that he used to have a very negative perception of Africa, and he's honest about where this comes from. Global media does not present Africa in the most positive light, and Africans and Black communities are not immune to this anti-Blackness. The media affects how we see one another, and Black people and the Eritrean and Ethiopian communities specifically are not immune to this. When he came to the United States, African Americans, referencing the ethnic group of the United States, often told him that he does not understand what it means to be Black because he looks different. He experienced this in South Africa as well, where he was actually racialized as colored. I want to pause here because, as I have credited on the HABESHA Project website, Dr. Emmanuel Isaac is actually the only researcher that I've seen research this topic in depth, the way that Habesha is used as a self-descriptor. And his research actually focuses on the use of Habesha in South Africa because essentially Eritreans and Ethiopians started migrating, and South Africa has this very rigid racial structure. So where you have Black, white, colored, and Indian, you now have a new group of people that are identifying as Habesha, and this inevitably caused some friction. We're seeing this friction play out on a global scale. The singer Tyla, who's from South Africa, has been slow to be embraced in the United States because she does not fit cleanly as Black or white. Identity labels differ across countries, and when you don't fit cleanly in these boxes, the society often does not know what to do with you. Toward the end of the interview, this participant said something that really stuck with me. They said that they no longer feel Eritrean, but that they do not feel fully American. They believe that their home is elsewhere. And while they do not know where their home is, you can hear in their voice that they are determined to find it. There's a song on the HABESHA Project playlist called Build a House by Eritrean Dutch artist Rimon. This song captures this feeling perfectly. The longing for a place that feels like home when you've been displaced by one, but you have yet to be fully embraced by another. Our fourth participant is a 36-year-old Ethiopian-Canadian who currently lives in New York City. While our third participant came to know this word through displacement, the fourth participant often heard this word in her home. While she acknowledges this word has entered the mainstream, especially through the likes of Drake, she still feels that this word belongs to us. For her, using the word Habesha means that she's made a friend. She uses it as a way to connect. But in this interview, she says something that gives me pause. She says, Habesha means I'm Ethiopian. And this is part of the tension with this word. Some people use the word Habesha as a synonym for Ethiopia, which completely erases Eritrea. And while this often isn't done maliciously, it reflects the fact that the impact of this word really depends on who's using it and how they are using it. Participant 4, although she has expressed immense love for the word and the way that she uses Habesha, understands why people wouldn't want to use this word. She even cites an instance where an Eritrean made it very clear that they do not identify as Habesha. However, she feels in these instances that because of the vibe shift, there isn't necessarily room for conversation to discuss why. And I understand that. For her, the word Habesha opens doors. But for me and for participants 1 through 3, you can see how often we are very careful with how we use this word, and we're often looking for if our Eritrean identity will still be respected. She talks about how magical it is to be able to spot your DNA. The fact that we all have very intimate relationships with grief and loss. How she loves how we all say back home. And then she goes on to say, we are all the same. While I could hear the love in her voice, This statement is really hard to hear for Eritreans, especially in the context of the word Habesha. We share culture, we share history, but Eritrea is a sovereign nation with its own identity. When an Eritrean, like participant 1, says, "We are all the same," he's speaking in terms of shared humanity, of shared culture, of shared regional context, while still centering his Eritrean identity. However, when Ethiopians use the same phrase within the context of the word Habesha, it can often feel like erasure of the very thing that Eritreans fought so hard to secure. But this is where participant 4 truly stood out. We talk about the fact that the Oromo ethnic group is the largest ethnic group in Ethiopia, and how she's never thought about the fact that they do not often use this word as a self-descriptor. And here, she does not make excuses. She simply notes, "That's bad." Then she does something that I rarely see. She acknowledges her privilege. She notes that the privilege of being emotionally tied to the word Habesha comes from her background as someone from the highlands of Ethiopia, and that moving forward, she will be more cognizant of her use of this term. This is honestly the best response I have ever gotten from an Ethiopian about the word Habesha. She doesn't apologize for the use of the term. She does not say that she should abandon it, but she's able to acknowledge and to question why she feels so close to this term and how this term may not be inclusive for everyone in her culture or in her country. In this way, she's able to hold nuance and complexity. She explains it's good to interrogate why you feel close to certain words, not to stop using them, but to understand your relationship to them. And when you're trying to bring people under a term that has belonged to a specific group, it makes sense why there would be pushback. She also explains the power of specificity, like the power of claiming Gondar as her hometown. But I do want to note that I think that this is specific to Ethiopia due to the ethnic federalism. Because of ethnic federalism, ethnic identity is more prominent in Ethiopia. Whereas in Eritrea, where we saw, again, a 30-year war for independence, you often see Eritreans aligning with their national identity. This is also reflected in episode 6, where you'll hear an Eritrean participant talk about how he has never identified as Tigrinya, which is the dominant ethnic group in Eritrea, because he's always been taught to identify as Eritrean. And then we got into beauty standards. She notes how her mom is extremely fair-skinned and would often be mistaken as Egyptian, versus Solomon, a man who was part of her Canadian community, was tall and dark-skinned and would often be mistaken as South Sudanese. She notes that in terms of appearance, we are not a monolith. We are not a prototype, but there definitely is a prototype being sold. Her husband's American friends are always asking her to hook them up with her Habesha girlfriends. And when she asks, what do they think Habesha looks like? They describe light skin or brown skin and soft curly hair. And this participant explains how this makes her bristle because this does not represent the majority of Eritrean and Ethiopian women. And ultimately, it becomes a game of desirability. This is also global. From the Americas to Africa to Asia, colorism and texturism are rooted in colonialism and white supremacy. But we have to talk about this and how it shows up in our communities, how Ethiopian and Eritrean men can perpetuate it, how our own families can perpetuate these standards. Participant 4 shares that in the wintertime, when she becomes more pale, she often gets more compliments about how beautiful she looks. Whereas in the summertime, when she's out and about and gets more tan, she often receives disappointing comments from her own family members. And she asks a question that should really sit with all of us. How can you look at your own daughter and tell them that they're dark as if that's a bad thing. Colorism starts at home. It's in our compliments. It's in our dating preferences. It's in our family dynamics. And it determines who's deemed beautiful and who's deemed not worthy. Participant 4 also talks about Blackness and how, despite the fact that African communities in Edmonton didn't really intermix often, she was eager to connect with other Africans via her African student organization in university. Coming to the United States, she notes the clear disdain that Africans tend to have towards the African American community. Like participant 2 and 3, she has also been told by African Americans that she's not really Black. To this, she responds, well, what am I? And this is the reality. We can debate semantics all we want, but at the end of the day, we are racialized and perceived as Black. She ends the conversation by saying that Ethiopians and Eritreans in the diaspora are still largely trying to figure out what our identities look like here. And she's right. These conversations are just beginning. This week showed us two things: that your geography heavily shapes your context. Participant 3's upbringing in Bantu made him aware of exclusions that someone born and raised in Asmara may not have been able to identify. And good faith matters. Participant 4's ability to acknowledge her privilege and say that she'll be more aware of how she uses this term moving forward is rare and valuable. You can love a word and you can still ask yourself why you love it and who it leaves out. Next week, we'll be diving into episodes 5 and 6. In the meantime, I encourage you all to view the full exhibit at HABESHAProject.com. And if you would like to see the written analysis that accompanies this video, head over to my Substack, also linked in the description below. And if you're interested in buying prints from the HABESHA Project, please fill out the interest form linked below. This is not committing you to anything, but this is helping me plan as I look forward to hosting a print sale in 2026. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you next week.